Hong Kong is the most cyberpunk place in the world. Throughout the 80s and 90s, many popular cyberpunk films such as Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell have depicted sprawling futuristic cityscapes influenced by the city of Hong Kong. Both films are considered landmarks of the cyberpunk genre, and both use distinctly Asian motifs as backgrounds for their dark, sprawling metropolis, with a focus on Hong Kong's unique aesthetic. The movies chose to present a sharp contrast between the ultra-commercialized, new and capitalistic side of the city against the dark, erotic, slum-like noir of the urban areas. With the rise of science fiction in recent years, Hong Kong occupies a peculiar place in both Hollywood and Japanese cinema, providing an exotic yet strangely familiar backdrop to explore ideas such as social disparity, excessive proliferation of technology, and the evolution of the human condition. In their efforts to reconcile the past with the present, utopia and dystopia, filmmakers of the modern cyberpunk movement present the city of Hong Kong as a place that's both a relic of the past and a pioneer for the future, a unique futuristic realm that exists and develops differently than the rest of the world. The Hong Kong city depicted in the cyberpunk genre has long since shed a light on the defining problem of the real-life Hong Kong. Its identity crisis is both a part of China and also its own autonomous territory. This has led to a crisis of governance, as the Communist Party of China tries to exert control over its separate territory. Exemplified in 2014's Umbrella Revolution, which brought an entire generation of disillusioned Hong Kong youth onto the street to shut down traffic for months on the city's main street. Following its occupation by the Japanese during World War II, Hong Kong experienced a period of economic revival and westernization after returning to British control. In the years leading up to its handover to mainland China, the city established itself as a world economic powerhouse, owing much of its success to high-tech industries such as integrated circuits and consumer electronics manufacturing. However, this period also produced much civil and social unrest, creating a large gap between the new rich and the old poor. Today, this divide manifests itself in the distinct culture of ultra-modern and Western placed alongside the traditional and Chinese. Towering skyscrapers, glittering neon signs, fast sports cars, and bright LCD screens, all symbols of the new, are commonly seen just opposed against dingy fishing villages, rickshaws, rustic forest trails, and night markets, the representations of the old. It's within this unique environment that many concepts of cyberpunk are realized, and the reason that many science fiction movies draw their artistic inspiration from this city. But it's not just the skyscrapers and neon signs per Blade Runner. The actual governance of the region falls to a small group of oligarchs elected by a business association and supported by Beijing. Hong Kong is led by a figure referred to as the chief executive, whose biggest daily challenge is juggling the interests of the mainland overlords with those of the elite tycoons who control the economy. At no juncture does the will of the people fit into the equation. See, Hong Kong elects its chief executive from a committee of 1,200 members from various business conglomerates. It's corporatism, with the most powerful groups belonging to the financial and real estate sectors. It's like a rotating door of government and business executives. To put that into perspective, only 689 people voted for Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying in 2012. That was a majority of the votes cast in the election. On top of this, the tax structure is almost non-existent and fundamentally unchanged since 1940. There's no capital gains tax, there's no dividend tax, there's no tax on interest, and you're only taxed on income earned in Hong Kong, not overseas. Basically, any tax you can think of does not exist. The government makes all its money from land sales at incredibly inflated prices to these tycoons, meaning most of the tax burden falls on those most able to pay. Basically, corporations have all the power, and the average citizen gets very little to survive in a city with extremely expensive housing. The taxation system is both out of date and ahead of its time, one of the many paradoxes of the city. The city has one of the highest levels of income inequality and the second highest real estate prices in the world. These extreme economic distortions have a lot to do with the fact that Hong Kongers don't have a voice in how they're governed. This issue gets to the root of what cyberpunk as a genre questions, a future where individuality is sublimated to greater corporate structures, which makes Hong Kong the perfect leaping off point. Blade Runner is widely regarded as having popularized the label of cyberpunk. It drew its style from urban spaces all over the world, especially Asian cities such as Tokyo and Hong Kong. Following the success of Blade Runner, other movies in the genre, such as Johnny Mnemonic, Hackers, Lawman Man 2, and Strange Days, have used Asian motifs for designing environments to portray cultural differences. Just as in Blade Runner, the most popular model for dark and sprawling cities of the future is an Asian-dominated metropolis. We can find visual icons relating to Chinese characters within a Chinatown setting in these types of films. Chinatown's glittering lanterns, together with the profusion of shops and commercial signboards characteristic of a normal busy Hong Kong street, juxtapose visual alternatives and establish a tone somewhere between eroticism and dreariness. Blade Runner's cultural references are indirect, but impactful. The incredibly detailed Los Angeles of 2019 creates a futuristic noir atmosphere by borrowing heavily from Asian motifs, albeit vague in general, in its design of icons and social spaces. The retrofitting of the noodle bar, the gigantic media screen of the geisha girl ad, the Chinese bioengineer who only does eyes, these elements create a city that looks like Chinatown in Tomorrowland. But let's go back to our initial question. What makes Hong Kong the city of cyberpunk? To fully understand why, we need to turn to Mamoru Oshii's animated masterpiece, Ghost in the Shell. Mamoru Oshii was looking for a model for the city of the future in a computerized world. For his inspiration, he turned to the cityscape of Hong Kong. While the fictional representation of LA in Blade Runner only suggests Hong Kong, Ghost in the Shell borrows directly from the city itself. In the analysis of Ghost in the Shell, a picture book covering the film, Takeuchi Atsushi, the designer of the film's art sets, stated that Hong Kong was the perfect city for Ghost in the Shell due to its excessive and highly chaotic visual space. The streets there flow with an excess or flood of information, along with everything this excess brings out. The modern city is swamped with billboards, neon lights, and symbols. As people live in this information flood, the streets will have to be depicted accordingly. An excess of information. This seems to be the reason for the appeal of Hong Kong. The city presents an overwhelming amount of information on the LCD screens, in the shopping mall windows, on billboard advertisements, and on glowing neon signs covering every inch of space. In the midst of this flood of information, people become numb to stimuli. Feelings are replaced by data, and the natural state of being is reduced to artificial constructs. The individual is lost in the collective. This is the kind of dark, dystopian future that cyberpunk movies strive to present to their viewers. Ghost in the Shell is the perfect representation of this feeling. It features many scenes of groups of people moving about, shrouded in rain and haze and lit by neon signs. Water imagery is used here as a symbol for the flood of data, its massive communication system in the new urban topography. Though Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell present different interpretations of Hong Kong, the objective is the same: to present a more real version of their respective futures. And Hong Kong's varied mix of both past and present creates this sort of immersive, relatable environment that creates immersion in a future that is alien and unfamiliar. An attempt to return to the past, while simultaneously existing in the future. Hong Kong's status as a cosmopolitan, cutting-edge city of high technology has led to it becoming an artistic influence for many science fiction films. Its visual spaces filled with chaos, sexuality, violence, peace, and calm exist together in a strange harmony that presents a vision of the past struggling to maintain its identity in an uncertain future.